The difference between the dominant operator and the cheapest operator would be a measure for the competitive pressure in the sector and how far operators competing on price. And the difference between cheapest and most expensive could be an alternative measure, because often it's not the dominant operator, or a dominant operator can be the cheapest if it became dominant through a price strategy. These are examples for several African countries that we cover, and the cheapest operator in the country, in Ghana, charges only $2.29 for the low user basket, and the cheapest operator available in Burkina Faso would charge $11. This just shows how different these countries are. And if I now compare the cheapest product from a dominant operator in Ghana, it's $3, which is not very high. But for example, in Tanzania, the difference between the cheapest operator and the most expensive operator is nearly threefold. And the most expensive operator is also the dominant operator in Tanzania. So this shows that these baskets can be used for a variety of purposes. And a crucial topic in Africa is that of mobile termination rates. Mobile termination rates that are above costs distort the market in favor of dominant operators, and therefore regulators have started to bring down these costs, bring down termination rates towards costs. And here I bring three examples of Namibia, Kenya and South Africa, and how using these tools can help to assess regulatory interventions. This chart shows that the price for a low user basket dropped between September 2005 and May 2010 by more than 2/3 in terms of real prices. And for a high user, medium user basket, it dropped even further. These price drops are brought in by liberalization, by awarding a second license, and also by addressing other competitive bottlenecks, like too high mobile termination rates. Looking at the same time at the performance, the financial performance of the incumbent mobile operator in Namibia, shows that competition and lowering termination rates actually have benefited the operator. MTC, which is a mobile incumbent operator, has in 2009 more subscribers, higher EBITDA margin than in 2008, where termination rates were dropped, higher after-tax profit, higher dividends paid, more base stations, and is also investing more. We are also conducting a telecommunications regulatory environment perception survey, and the survey results for 2006 were very grim. Everyone viewed the majority viewed the regulators being very inefficient. And we can see that in 2009, the situation has improved, even though it's still being seen as inefficient. But the liberalization, new communications bill, and also addressing termination rates have increased the efficiency the regulator is being perceived on. In the example of Kenya, in August 2010, the regulator passed the most innovative interconnection ruling so far in Africa. It introduced cost-based termination rates and forced dominant operators to price off-net calls at the price of on-net calls, while at the same time recognizing that the dominant operator in Kenya, Safaricom, used M-Pesa as an unfair leverage to gain competitive power in the market. And it warned Safaricom that either you find some regulation in some contracts or some agreement with other operators on how you terminate mobile payments between networks, or we will regulate. The consequence of this termination ruling was that Zain and Orange dropped their prices by 66% and 55% on average overnight. In South Africa, we find that the dominant operator was arguing that the lower termination rates led to 800 million NOK on revenues, and but they wouldn't shed any jobs. So here we find a debate where dominant operators try to influence policymakers not to drop termination rates further. But using supply-side analysis and sector performance analysis, we could show that subscriber numbers, yes, they dropped, but this had to do to registration of SIM cards of prepaid subscribers, but actually that the average revenue per user increased, that the minutes of use increased, and that the effective price that their customers are being charged, which is estimated by using ARPU divided by minutes of use, actually also decreased. So prices decreased and their revenue per user increased and the minutes of use increased, which is consistent with economic theory. Lower prices lead to more use. At the same time, operating profits rose and revenue also rose. So where is this 800 million loss? It's just a figure which was brought by the dominant operator to convince policymakers, but which cannot be found in financial statements. So in conclusion, assessing the sector performance requires a set of tools, and the combination of demand-side and supply-side tools are crucial to measure regulatory impacts and monitor policy objectives, and also to protect consumer interests and provide policy advice. Thank you very much.